Have you ever stood in the supplement aisle of a high-end grocery store or scrolled through social media and just felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of miracles being sold to us? We are living in an era where you can allegedly buy a shortcut for absolutely everything. If you have brain fog, there is a proprietary blend of mushrooms for that. If your metabolism is slow, there is a detox tea. If you want to live to be 120, there are longevity injections, peptides, and anti aging molecules. We are culturally obsessed with the idea of a limitless pill, a single, frictionless intervention that can instantly override the fact that we only slept 4 hours, ate ultra processed food, and haven't moved from our desk chairs in days.
It is one of the most fascinating and frankly dangerous paradoxes of modern civilization. We are pouring billions of dollars into the wellness industry, yet if you look at the actual epidemiological data, the vast majority of people remain metabolically unhealthy, chronically inflamed, severely sleep deprived, and emotionally burned out. The reason we are so desperate to believe in these biological shortcuts is simple, though a bit uncomfortable to admit. Real, foundational lifestyle change is incredibly demanding. It requires relentless discipline, daily consistency, and a willingness to adapt your behaviors over decades. Swallowing a capsule with your morning coffee feels infinitely easier. It gives the illusion of taking action. But after spending decades in medicine, the most profound truth I have learned is that human biology simply does not work that way. Longevity and true health span are never, ever built from one isolated intervention. They emerge from complex systems working together in harmony.
That word systems feels like the absolute core of where we get it wrong. We treat the human body like a simple machine. We think, my energy is low, so my battery is empty. Let me take an energy pill. We fail to realize that the body is more like a highly intricate ecosystem. You cannot just introduce an apex predator into an ecosystem and expect everything else to stay exactly the same.
That is a brilliant analogy. When you introduce a powerful supplement or a medication, you are pulling a single lever in a room full of thousands of interconnected gears. Your sleep architecture, your exercise habits, your nutritional intake, your mitochondrial function, your brain, your heart, your immune system. These are not separate departments operating independently. They are in constant, dynamic communication. When people try to outsource their health to a pill, they are essentially trying to bribe the ecosystem instead of tending to it.
Which leads perfectly into a phenomenon I know you have observed over the years. As people try to navigate this overwhelming landscape of health and wellness, they tend to fall into very specific behavioral camps. You have categorized these into 3 distinct health personalities, right?
Yes, very much so. Over time, you start to see distinct psychological patterns in how people approach interventions. The first group is exactly what we were just discussing. These are the biological outsourcers. They want the supplements, the hormone therapies, and the prescription medications, but they want them entirely without the burden of lifestyle modification. They are hoping that an expensive handful of capsules can mathematically compensate for a sedentary lifestyle, chronic psychological stress, and a diet devoid of actual nutrients.
It is the ultimate shortcut mentality. It is like trying to out-earn massive credit card debt by finding a penny on the sidewalk every day. The math simply does not work.
Exactly. You cannot out-supplement a fundamentally broken routine. Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have the second group. These are individuals who are incredibly dedicated to the hard work. They optimize their nutrition, they train like athletes, they prioritize their sleep hygiene, but they are incredibly resistant, sometimes even philosophically opposed to any form of medication or targeted supplementation.
I know so many people in this camp. There is this deep-seated belief that if something is natural, it is inherently superior, and if it is synthesized in a lab, it is toxic. It is a very romanticized view of nature, ignoring the fact that nature also produces arsenic and venom.
Precisely. It is the naturalistic fallacy. They believe the body can heal absolutely anything if just given the right organic vegetables and sunlight. While lifestyle is the foundation, biology sometimes breaks in ways that require targeted, scientific intervention. Refusing a life-saving or health-extending tool simply because it comes from a pharmacy is a tragic limitation. And that brings us to the third category, which might be the most common today. These are the people who are extremely comfortable taking a dozen unregulated supplements they bought off the internet, but they are terrified of prescription medications.
Yes, I have seen people who will happily ingest an experimental moss extract recommended by a podcaster, but if a doctor suggests a well-researched statin for their dangerously high cholesterol, they treat it like poison.
It is a massive cognitive dissonance. They assume that because a supplement is sold over the counter, it is inherently safe, gentle, and holistic, while pharmaceuticals are viewed as dangerous, aggressive, and toxic. The reality is that human biology is far more nuanced. A poorly manufactured supplement can cause acute liver toxicity, while a highly targeted prescription medication might perfectly correct a genetic metabolic flaw safely for decades. We have to stop looking at this through the lens of ideology and start looking at it through the lens of strategic biology.
Strategic biology, I love that phrasing. It strips away the tribalism. Modern health culture has essentially created this false, aggressive war between lifestyle optimization and medical intervention. It is framed as an either-or scenario. You are either the holistic wellness person or you are the clinical pharma person.
And that false dichotomy is actively harming people. If our ultimate goal is maximizing health span, biological resilience, and longevity, why on earth would we intentionally blindfold ourselves to half the available tools? We should remain fiercely open-minded to all evidence-based interventions. Nutrition absolutely matters. Exercise is non-negotiable. Sleep is the bedrock of recovery. Stress regulation dictates your hormonal environment. But in appropriate clinical situations, supplements and prescription medications play incredibly important, sometimes life-saving roles. Health optimization requires profound flexibility, not rigid dogma.
It requires us to be pragmatic rather than purely philosophical, which brings up another massive illusion in the wellness space. If you spend 10 minutes online, you will find 100 different experts pushing their ultimate daily supplement stack. The implication is that there is a universal biological baseline, and everyone listening needs to be taking these specific 5 pills every morning.
That is one of the most frustrating problems in modern health communication. The idea of a universal supplement stack is a complete myth. Medications and supplements are highly individualized. What serves as a crucial metabolic optimizer for one person could be entirely unnecessary or actively harmful to another.
Because we are not biological clones.
Exactly. Your response to an intervention depends on a staggering number of variables. Your chronological age, your unique genetic predispositions, your baseline sleep architecture, your current lab results, your historical medical profile, your allostatic load, meaning your cumulative stress, your daily dietary intake, and your baseline activity level. To assume that a 25-year-old sedentary office worker needs the exact same molecular intervention as a 50-year-old triathlete is biological illiteracy. Human biology is entirely contextual.
So, the era of guessing and blindly copying influencers has to end. Personalization is not just a luxury anymore, it is the fundamental requirement for safety and efficacy.
Absolutely. And to navigate this personalized landscape, we need a rigorous framework. Before anyone considers adding a supplement, a peptide, or a medication to their routine, I always propose they ask themselves 3 critical questions.
Let's break those down, because this is where the philosophy actually meets daily execution. The first question you propose is, what is the objective?
Yes. It sounds almost too simple, but you would be shocked by how many people fail to answer it. People often take supplements without clearly defining why they are taking them. They hear a compound is good for longevity and they just start swallowing it. But what are we actually targeting? Are you trying to improve your deep sleep architecture? Are you trying to accelerate muscular recovery? Are we targeting insulin resistance and metabolic health? Are we trying to lower systemic inflammation? Or are we aiming for cognitive performance?
If you don't know the destination, any road will take you there, but you probably won't like where you end up. Without a clear, highly specific objective, these interventions just become random, expensive biological experimentation.
Exactly. Precision begins with absolute clarity. Every single intervention you put into your body should be hired to solve a specific biological problem or optimize a specific pathway. If you cannot articulate the job description of the pill you are taking, you should not be taking it.
That is a fantastic rule of thumb. Hire your supplements for a specific job, which seamlessly leads to the second question in your framework. Is there a biomarker?
This is where we move from theory into reality. If we have established an objective, we then need to know if we can objectively measure our progress. If you are taking something to improve your health, how do you know it is actually working? Can we monitor your fasting blood glucose? Can we look at your heart rate variability, your HRV? Can we test specific inflammatory markers like hsCRP in your blood? Can we track your sleep quality through a wearable device? Can we measure changes in your body composition or your lipid profiles?
Because human beings are notoriously terrible at subjectively evaluating their own health. We fall victim to the placebo effect, or we just have a good day and attribute it to a pill we took 3 weeks ago. Data is what actually creates intelligent intervention.
Precisely. Without objective feedback, optimization is just guesswork. You are flying a plane in the dark without instruments. Biology responds best to measurable adaptation. If you introduce an intervention, track the biomarker. If the biomarker improves, you maintain the protocol. If it stays the same or worsens, you discard the intervention. It removes the emotion and the marketing from the equation entirely.
It is empowering, really. It shifts the power from the person selling the product back to the person taking it. Now, the final question in the framework might be the most complex and perhaps the most philosophical. Does the risk outweigh the reward?
It is undeniably the most important question of all, and it requires deep intellectual honesty. Every single intervention, whether it is a pharmaceutical drug, an herbal supplement, or even a specific extreme diet, carries potential benefits, inherent limitations, and distinct risks. There is no biological free lunch.
Everything has a cost.
Everything. So, we must rigorously evaluate how well understood is the mechanism of action. Are we relying on a single study done on mice, or do we have decades of robust clinical evidence in humans? What are the acute, short-term risks? What are the potential long-term, cascading risks that might not show up for 10 years?
And I think there is a hidden layer to this question that people rarely consider. We always think about the risk of taking the action. We rarely calculate the risk of doing nothing.
That is a profound point. In medicine, doing nothing is still an active decision. If a patient has rapidly progressing cardiovascular disease, the risk of a statin might be muscle aches or a slight elevation in liver enzymes. But the risk of doing nothing is a fatal myocardial infarction. Risk tolerance differs wildly between individuals based on their psychology and their stage of life. But true health optimization is, at its core, strategic risk management. It requires informed, deeply considered decision-making, not fear-based reactions.
I love that framing. Health optimization as strategic risk management. It really highlights why, despite all of our incredible modern medical innovations, the CRISPR gene editing, the advanced peptides, the continuous monitors, certain unsexy fundamentals still completely dominate human biology. Lifestyle remains the absolute foundation.
And it always will. You can have the most expensive, cutting-edge longevity protocol in the world, but no supplement can fully compensate for chronic sleep deprivation. No molecule can undo the damage of sitting in a chair for 14 hours a day. No injection can fix a diet that destroys your gut microbiome, and no pill can cure the physiological devastation of chronic stress overload and social isolation.
It is almost as if our mitochondria, the literal powerhouses of our cells, don't care about our biohacking trends. They still require the ancient inputs they evolved with. They need physical movement, they need deep nutrient density, they need circadian alignment with the sun, and they need profound rest. Human biology was forged through lifestyle.
Beautifully said. Supplements and medications are exactly that, supplementary. They can support the system, they can nudge the system in a favorable direction, and they can rescue a failing system. but they can never, ever replace the system.
So, looking forward, if the magic pill is an illusion, where does that leave us? The future of medicine seems to be accelerating at a breakneck pace, but it feels like it is moving away from the one size fits all model and towards something incredibly bespoke.
The future of medicine is increasingly, almost unimaginably personalized. We are moving away from reactive disease treatment, waiting until a system catastrophically fails, and then trying to mask the symptoms toward predictive biological optimization.
What does that actually look like in practice?
It looks like a seamless integration of data. Future healthcare will combine your unique genomic sequencing with real-time data from advanced wearables. We will have continuous tracking of thousands of biomarkers, not just glucose or heart rate. Artificial intelligence will interpret this massive influx of personal data to identify microscopic negative trends years before they manifest as disease. We will have highly individualized, dynamic interventions that change as your biology changes.
It is the ultimate realization of treating the body as an ecosystem. But even with all of that incredible technology, the core philosophy we have discussed today doesn't change, does it?
Not at all. The tools will become exponentially more sophisticated, but the core principle remains absolute. There is no magic molecule. There is only intelligent systems management.
Perhaps the greatest illusion in the health and wellness space is the stubborn belief that a complex, multi-dimensional systems problem can be solved by a single, one-dimensional intervention. We want the easy way out, but biology demands respect.
Because longevity is not built through shortcuts. It is built through alignment. It is the daily orchestration of sleep, movement, nutrition, recovery, meaning, and human connection. And yes, when appropriate, it includes carefully selected, strategically applied medical tools. True health is never one-dimensional. It is a lifelong biological orchestration.
A symphony, not a solo. This is Oxyzen Health Intelligence.